on this episode of Tell Us a Story.
Yeah, well, I'm actually on a boat. Like, why would you do that? You don't have the money to do that.
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to get there from here? You can't do that. All of the things, this is what you should do instead. Go and run a business from a boat.
Earlier, you mentioned the C.A.G.E. Define and talk about it.
G stands for guilt. You're trying to avoid guilt or act based on guilt.
How did you know it was time to leave your job and go?
One of my friends was like, what have you been smoking?
What sort of intuitive practices do you use in your business?
So I sat him down and I said, hey, I'm giving you 7 months notice. He said, what are you going to do? I said, I don't know yet.
So you've converted, theoretically, your to-do list into inspired action lists.
Yes.
Welcome to Tell Us a Story, the podcast by Belmont City Press, where entrepreneurs and sales professionals share their journeys, insights, and strategies for success. In each episode, our guests reveal how they've overcome challenges, established their brands, and leveraged their stories to promote their businesses so you can too. I'm Red Hilton, your host for this episode. Today I'm joined by Ellen Coomber, who is the founder of Expanding Possibilities. So, Ellen, tell us a story.
Hey, Red. Yeah, I'm Ellen, and at Expanding Possibilities, we help corporate leaders and entrepreneurs to create their dream life, what I call their Lush Life, with the specific purpose of helping them fall in love with their lives by creating a life they don't need a vacation from, one that leaves them in awe of the magic they create in their everyday experiences. Our ideal client is a successful leader in business, either corporate or an entrepreneur who's looking for more out of life, more fulfillment, more joy. They have the success and now they really want to connect to what truly lights them up so they can ultimately live a life of joy, of meaning. You can discover more information about us at our website, www.expandingpossibilities.today, because why do it tomorrow when you can do it today? And we can easily be reached by clicking on the Let's Chat feature and sending us a message or booking a call. So please do go explore the website or reach out so we can help you create your version of a lush life.
That's fabulous, Ellen. Every time I talk to you, I want to go do something. Does that make sense? And again, why do it today? Why do it tomorrow when you can do it today? That's fabulous. Please bring us to where you are, literally and figuratively, and you know what I mean.
Yeah, well, I'm actually on a boat, so you might even be able to hear some of the gentle lap, lap, lap of the waves. So I'm hoping that's relaxing as opposed to distracting. And yeah, I live on my boat. I run my business from my boat. I have spent the last kind of 8 years now traveling the world whilst running my business, and I moved onto my boat about 3 years ago, sailed around Britain, and getting her ready now for a next big adventure. So this is my version of a lush life. It's not everybody's version of a love life, like living on a boat, but I get to wake up on my boat, have coffee on my deck, I feel excited for the day ahead. But it wasn't always this way. I was working in my corporate role every day, just waking up thinking, God, there's got to be more to life than this, and I knew that something was missing. I wasn't sure exactly what it was. I didn't have the relationship I wanted, but it wasn't just that. There was all the bits and gadgets weren't filling my bucket. I had the nice car, the house, the holidays, but there was just this tap, tap, tap going, there's something more, there's something more, there's something more. And, I look back now at those days of, being in at the office at 7, of leaving at 7, of the night I hid under a desk to avoid a security guard at work so that they wouldn't know I was pulling an all-nighter because we weren't supposed to. And I can't quite believe that used to, used to be my life. And so I've always worked hard, always been successful. I kind of grew up with the mantra that, success was 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. You had to make it all happen. But it just wasn't feeling good anymore. And so I went on a bit of a journey from self-development seminar to self-development seminar, who all kind of just were trying to either fix me or tell me to follow my heart. And I was like, well, if I knew what my heart wanted, I'd be doing it already, until I was invited to a seminar in intuition. And that just completely changed everything for me, because I realized that the real challenge was that I was disconnected from my intuition. And deep down, I did know, but there was no way I was going to access that until I actually really started connecting back with myself. And so as I started to deepen my connection with my intuition, deepen my connection with what I came to call my spirit, I realized how much I've been living in what I came to call the cage that was kind of limiting me. And I started making different choices. I started making choices from my intuition, and that led me on a whole journey to, leaving my corporate job, to getting on a sailboat and sailing from St. Lucia to the Galapagos in 2016. And then since then, I've kind of been all over the place, and ended up here on this boat today.
That's fabulous. I think if I can just sort of interject with the burning question on everyone's mind right now, how much room for guests do we have on the boat? Like two people?
Two people, easily 2 people, yeah.
What are we bringing?
We got 3 cabins on the boat. So like one is mine, but we've got in the other house, but there's like 2 other cabins that we have for guests, a double and kind of a single, because most of that cabin is taken up with electronic equipment to be off grid. So we're pretty much nearly fully off grid, or we hope to be off grid fully by next year. So solar panels and everything. So yeah, easy accommodation for 3 people.
So we always put contact information in the show notes. If you get any emails asking, for your guest policy and where to find you on Airbnb, this is why. So
this is why.
Fascinating story. Absolutely fascinating story. And I will say 1,000,000 times you are braver than I am. 3,000,000 times braver than I am. So kudos to you for that. Just talk to us about sort of your business. Your journey has been amazing, but talk about the amazing journey that people take with you at expandingpossibilities.today.
Yeah. So it's about helping people realize what they truly want to do, and realize that they can have it today as opposed to tomorrow. Like very often when I work with clients, sometimes they have no idea what they want. They just come to me, they're like, look, I have everything that I thought I wanted and I'm still not happy, like help. But usually when we dig in, they start to say things like, oh, one day I'm going to. And interestingly, it's usually either 5 years or retirement. And I think 5 years is like, it's far enough away that you don't have to do anything today, but it's close enough that you kind of kid yourself that it'll happen. In 5 years, I'm going to take my family on a trip to Alaska. When I retire, which is the bigger dreams, I'm going to run an art gallery. And, in terms of the Alaska trip, I said, just choose that that's what you want to do, and let go of the fact that it has to be in 5 years. And between one session and the next session, she'd had a work meeting with a prospective partner, and they got chatting. He'd said, oh yeah, my wife organizes trips to Alaska. And 5 weeks later, her and her family and her father were on this trip to Alaska, and he died like around 12 to 18 months later. And so if she hadn't done it then, they'd have missed out on that whole experience. And my other client, he launched his art gallery in 6 months. So it is about helping people realize they can have their dream life today, whatever that looks like for them.
That's amazing. That gave me chills. That's amazing. Earlier, you mentioned the cage. Define and talk about it.
Yeah, well, CAGE it's both a metaphor and an acronym, and which is why I think it works well for people. The cage symbolizes, the bars around us that limit us, essentially. And what it stands for is the C is the conditions. We think we have to have conditions in place before we can have what we want. When I have enough money, then I'll do this. When I get to retirement, then I'll do this. When the kids have left home, when this project's over, when it's kind of the when then kind of things. And I got stuck in that for a lot of time. I had a story that said, when I have a passive source of income, then I'll be able to just go and do what I would love. So I spent a lot of my 20s and early 30s with eBay businesses and foreign exchange businesses and rental properties, all of which failed miserably, and ended up losing quite a lot of money doing that. And when I stopped doing that and just started doing what I loved, the clients just, fell into my lap, literally, in the case of one lurching ferry in Australia. But so that's the C, the conditions. The A is for assumptions. The assumptions we place on ourselves about who we think we have to be. I have to please others, that feeling of being an imposter, maybe. The G stands for guilt. You're trying to avoid guilt or act based on guilt. I have to do this. I should be doing this. And the E is for expectations. All those expectations we have on us from society, family, friends, work, or just simply ourselves.
Fascinating. So sort of guide us through the difference between, breaking through the whole cage mentality and intuition, because you talk a lot about intuition as well. So walk us through what intuition is, the difference between, and, basically, how do you know?
Yeah. So for me, kind of intuition is what's obvious when you're outside of your cage. So first, it's about being aware of when you're coming from your cage. And we don't know. They kind of say, like, a fish doesn't know it's in water until you take it out of water. We don't know we're in our cage until you get an experience of being outside of it and going, okay, wow. Like, if I let go of my thoughts and feelings, if I let go of my assumptions, if I let go of my definitions, then suddenly there's this whole world out there of something that I can accomplish. So, when we're in our cage, we're in our rational mind, I guess, if you like, as well, and those thoughts and feelings that talk to us, that tell us all of the stories about what we should or shouldn't be doing. Intuition is when we're connected to, like, the 400 billion bits of information that's out there in each moment. We actually filter that down to 2,000 pieces of information we're consciously aware of. And when we filter it through the cage, we're just seeing the bits that are designed to try and keep us safe. And it's learning how to step out of that cage and connect in with intuition, so you have access to the 400 billion bits of information. And so you spot connections you would never have seen before. And that's when the magic really starts to happen.
Interesting. And one more time, define CAGE, or the acronym CAGE, for us again.
What stands for conditions, assumptions, guilt, and expectations.
Okay. And if intuition is probably where we're supposed to be, as opposed to the cage, how come we don't always follow our intuition then?
Because it generally doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to our rational mind. So, if you've done a meditation, you get into this high meditative state, or even when you dream, you wake up and you remember your dream, and then you brush your teeth and you've forgotten it. It's kind of like that. You get this insight from intuition. You're like, wow, that's what I need to do. And then your cage goes, but that doesn't make sense. Like, why would you do that? You don't have the money to do that. Mm-hmm. How are you going to get there from here? You can't do that. All of the things, this is what you should do instead. Go and run a business from a boat. Don't be silly. You need to have a passive income before you do what you love, right? So we spend all of this time trying to fix the cage or have these goals that come from the cage. And we spend our lives doing that rather than just going, well, I'm just going to do that and know that things are going to fall into place for me.
How did you know it was time to leave your job and go? Did you just step out and say, I'm going with my intuition, or was there a breaking point and it sort of all came together?
It was more of a tap, 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 getting louder and louder. I didn't have this kind of like rock bottom moment, if you like. And I actually struggled with that when I started my business, because most speakers, and they're like, oh, I had this rock bottom moment, I pulled myself up. And then one of my friends said, but surely it's better not to have to hit rock bottom before you change your life. And I was like, okay. So again, that was an example of my cage going, hang on a second, you don't have a rock bottom moment. You can't possibly make a success of this business. You really have to fail before you can. I was like, no, I'm not listening to you. So I knew it was gradual that I wanted to do something different. But at this point, I was practicing, my intuition. Things were changing at work, and I was working less and having better results. And so people started asking me, like, what are you doing? Like, one of my friends was like, what have you been smoking? Because I want some of it, because they saw the change from like the workaholic, overachieving, successful, happy-ish, but not really fulfilled, to taking it easy, loving life, and still getting all of the accolades and everything. And they were like, what is the difference? So I just started working with people and realized that I really enjoyed helping other people connect to their truth and their joy. And then one day I was just sat there getting ready to, start work for the year. And I just had this intuitive hit. And it was just like, you won't be here in a year. I'm like, okay, I won't be here in a year. And I'm like, I'll be doing what? And it was like, you'll either have decided what it is you love, or you'll be sailing. I went, okay. And then in May that year, I got another hit that said, tell your boss you're leaving at the end of December. So I sat him down and I said, hey, I'm giving you 7 months notice. He said, what are you going to do? I said, I don't know yet. And then it got closer and closer to the time. And a friend's like, will you come sailing with me? And I'm like, sure. And then I started doing that, and bit by bit I just kept, go to America, run workshops, talk to people about it. And I'm like, okay. So I did that, and I sat my first client. I was sat there, and a friend said, I'd like to pay some money. I'm like, for what? She's like, to coach me. I'm like, okay. And that's how my coaching business started.
That's phenomenal. Talk to us about expandingpossibilities.today, your website. What are people going to find there?
So you'll find a little bit more about me, my journey, my philosophy on there. You'll find some videos on what it's like to step out the cage. There's some exercises on there as well that you can kind of have an experience of what is it like to step out of my cage and create from spirit. There's also some free resources on there. There's some toolkits that you can get. That's the meditation practice that I use to kind of leave my job and start my business. And there's a lot of free guides on accessing your intuition, beating burnout, and on intuitive business as well, how you can bring intuition into your business on a day-to-day basis.
What sort of intuitive practices do you use in your business? What are the intuitive practices they're going to find there?
So I use it for everything, essentially. I use it for goal setting. I use it to prepare for our chat today, you know, to step in and go, what would I love to share? What's going to serve people? What are my end results? I use it to shift from having a to-do list to having an inspired action list. You know, we have that list of things that we create. Here's all the things I have to do. And it just feels overwhelming and so much. And every day I step into the vision of my business and intuitively ask, what is my next step today? And I create an inspired action list. And some days there's one thing on that list. I'm like, well, that's ridiculous. I can do so much more than that. And that thing turns into a load of other things, or that thing or something happens and I get an opportunity to like go sailing. And I'm like, wow, I did only have a chance to do that today. So like my intuition knows best, even when my rational mind thinks it does.
So you've converted, theoretically, your to-do list into inspired action lists.
Yes.
Okay, my left brain is breathing in and out of a paper bag right now. I just want to let you know that. Like, I'm gonna struggle through that, but I'm gonna trust my intuition that is perhaps what I should do as well. Let me ask you a question that I like to ask people, because I think it sort of brings us to where you are in a different way. What's a misconception about what it is you do? What do you often need to educate people on, either in your business or what is, I don't want to say best for them, but you know, that you walk people through?
Yeah. I think the key thing is we think we need to fix ourselves. And so often people go on a self-development journey, as I did, to try and find what's going to fix them. If I can fix myself and make myself whole, then everything's going to be okay. And really it's taking them on a journey to realize there's nothing about them that needs fixing. You know, we have everything we need right now to create the things that we desire in life. And it's that journey of realizing that all of us is valid in the world, including our cage. Like, we don't want to give the toddler our car keys to drive the car, you know, but it's still valid in our life. It's designed to keep us safe. You know, if you're walking down a dark alley and your cage is like, run, well, you run, because that's what it's designed for. But there are times you're having conversations with people and there isn't a saber-toothed tiger in the room. And actually, maybe you don't need to react quite in the way you thought you did to protect yourself. And that's really what it's about. But it's about recognizing you don't need to fix yourself. You don't need to shift your belief systems. You don't need to overcome your stories. You know, that's a lot of BS that a lot of self-development modalities want you in, because you're going to keep creating those problems and those issues if that's what you're focused on, rather than focusing on what you love.
I always say it's the difference between focusing on being safe versus being happy. And some people conflate those two.
Yeah.
That safety is their happiness, or that's all to their happiness. So do you think like the cage is like the fallback position that people use as a...
Yeah, I mean, the cage is our default. It's how we operate in the world. It's, you know, it's based, underlying all of it, it's based on the beliefs of who we are and who we need to be in order to stay safe. And as children, we took on all of these messages, these stories about what we needed to be, you know, and sometimes we acquiesce to those and sometimes we rebel to those, you know. Sometimes we were told we needed to go to university and we went, I'm not doing that. And sometimes we went, okay, I'll be the good girl, you know. And often with siblings, you find one acquiesces and one rebels, right? But it's all in reaction to the story, rather than to what actually we would truly love. And so our cage really is our default, you know, position. That, and the older we get, the more and more stories we create, because we create, I firmly believe we create everything that happens in our life, you know. As a premise, we create it. So if we create it, well, then we continue to create the experiences, and we go, see, look, I have all of this evidence. And that's what I often have to walk people. They go, I've got all of this evidence that this is what happens. I'm like, yeah, but if I can take them through an exercise, I can show them how they created that. So actually, you've got a ton of evidence that you've created that thing in your life, and now let's shift it and create something different.
Sure. Ellen, what is your Monty? So here at Belmont City Press, our mascot, his name is Monty, Belmont Monty, and he's sort of that symbol of, all things inspirational, or maybe a little lesson learned, or a mantra that we sort of carry with us. Is there something that you can share with our listeners today?
Yeah, it actually ties into what we were just talking about. It's like your focus creates your reality, and your reality therefore shows you where your focus is. So if we create it all, people often think they're focusing on something, but actually they're focusing on something else. And, I've got a great example of this. I was staying in an Airbnb recently after I just split up with somebody, and I was feeling like hurt and wounded. And I got to this Airbnb. It was in Texas, in Austin, and it was raining. And it was one of those ones where you have to put a key code in and open the door. So I pushed the key code in, and I put the door, and it wouldn't open. I'm standing here, and it's in Texas rain. If you've seen Texas, it was coming down.
It's a thing.
I was getting more and more upset and frustrated. And then I went back to the car, and I sat in the car, and I was like in tears. I was like, argh. And then I went, hang on a second. We create it all. Your focus creates your reality. Your focus somehow is on staying out of this Airbnb. So what is really going on? I was like, well, what is that serving? And I realized I was feeling wounded and hurt, and I wanted one of my friends to come rescue me and, prove that I was loved. So they'd come and pick me up out of the rain and sweep me off and dry me off. And I was like, okay, cool, great. Thank you. You're trying to keep me safe. You're trying to prove that I'm lovable. But, actually, what would I really love? I'd really love to be on my own today. I just run a retreat for the last 2 days. And I'd love to just sit, veg out in front of some TV and order my favorite comfort food, which is, this brilliant Greek pita bread thing. Anyway, but I was like, that's what I would really love. I was like, okay. And the thing is, we talked about 400 billion bits of information in 2000. When we're in our intuition, we expand our awareness. So I went back to the door in this energy of this vision of what I wanted, and I pushed the button, and then I noticed there was another knob higher up, and I went, oh, I wonder if you have to turn that. I turned that, and I opened the door, and I was like, okay, that is the thing. That is the difference. If I'd have stayed in my focus, unconscious focus of I'm trying to prove that I'm lovable, I'd have stayed out of that Airbnb. But I shifted my focus to what I really wanted. And so my awareness expanded to show me what I needed to create what I truly wanted. And that's what I help people do, is understand where their real unconscious focus is and shift it. We don't need to change it. Like a lot of people go, oh, great, so now how do you prove that you're lovable? No, that's the red herring. You don't need to prove that. I don't need to overcome that story. I just need to focus on creating what I want.
Fabulous. I do want to circle back on that Greek pita thing. What is it? Please let me know. What is your favorite?
My favorite. It's like this like lamb inside and like salad, but the key thing here is they put the chips inside it as well. The French fries, sorry.
Yeah, no, sorry. Come on over to the US. No.
the French fries inside it as well.
They put French fries inside of a pita pocket, so we're carb loading as we're speaking.
Yeah, absolutely. And
I don't eat meat, so we just lost the protein.
You can do the falafel.
Yes, and then we put salad and the dressing in there.
Salad and the dressing in there, and then you get the crispiness of the fries and the softness of the pita bread.
A good pita bread. There's nothing that beats a nice, fresh, fluffy pita bread. Yes,
I'm talking about the flesh. Not the kind of store-bought processed. No.
Yeah, no. Absolutely. Okay, all right. We're on the same sheet of music here. All right. Speaking of, are you ready for our rapid fire session?
Oh, go. Yes.
We're going to get to know the Ellen behind the Ellen. I'm going to give you 2 choices, and you pick the one that speaks to you, and I'll let you know if you're right or wrong. No, I'm just kidding. Which is completely based in fact of my opinion. Yes. All right. Well, let's see. Would you prefer to write a blog or do a vlog? Video or writing?
Video.
Okay. Would you rather go to the theater or the cinema? Theater, see something live.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, as long as they're serving popcorn, because the only reason I go to the cinema is to eat popcorn. I don't care what's playing.
The minstrels.
Do you prefer mint or cinnamon flavor?
Mint.
Yes, I do believe that's the correct answer. Yeah. Would you rather ride with a sunroof in your car, although you're in a boat, or a convertible with no top at all?
Convertible, hands down.
Absolutely not. Sushi or tacos?
Oh, I can't do rice anymore, else I'd have gone with sushi.
I'm so sorry for your
I
loss.
can't really do tacos either, but so I would probably go with sushi.
Ooh, all right. Let's see. Do you like beer or cider?
Cider.
Cider. I can't drink, but I feel like I'd be beer. And I don't know why. Probably because, well, we don't need to get into that. Let's see. Would you rather, do you have a laptop or a tablet?
Both.
You have both. Which do you prefer?
Depends what I'm doing. Okay. Laptop for work, tablet for entertainment.
All right. And chocolate or vanilla?
Vanilla.
No, absolutely wrong. Absolutely wrong.
Ice cream. If we're talking
ice cream. Yeah. So I always tell the story. When I was younger, my sister for Christmas got an ice cream making kit and she made vanilla ice cream or some reasonable facsimile thereof. I thought I was dying after I ate it, was near death for I feel like weeks, but it was probably 10 minutes. And ever since then, I cannot eat vanilla ice cream. And it's painful and sad, but it's where we are. So that is not it's not the right answer. I'm sorry. It's chocolate. All right. So as you know, we have our guest to guest question. So the guest on the show before you left behind a question for you to answer on our show. Are you ready for our guest to guest question?
Yes, ready.
Fabulous. And I think this is perfect for you. What is a moment in your life that passed seemingly without notice, but upon reflection, you now understand its impact?
Ooh. Well, you know, the one that jumps to my mind, I wouldn't say it seemingly passed without notice, but I didn't understand the impact at the time. So when I was 3.5, I fell off a boat in the South China Sea. You can imagine how happy my mum is. I now live on a boat, right?
Fabulous.
And the only reason I'm still here today, spoiler alert, I lived, but the only reason I'm here today is because my father saw 2 small feet go under the waves and dropped his drink and jumped over the side of the boat and didn't realize it was his daughter until he got me to the surface and to the top. And this has been like one of those like family stories that's just been, you nearly died, funny family story. You know, obviously it's like decades later, it was irrelevant until I started doing this work. And I realized that, you know, my father had said to me, you know, be a good girl, you know, sit there, don't move. I was the only kid up on deck because all the other kids wanted to be down with my mum and my new baby brother. And I was, you know, fed up with new baby brother by that point. So I disobeyed him and I nearly died. And so I have a huge story about having to keep the authority happy, particularly the male authority. Like, you cannot upset the authority. You've got to agree with the authority. And so something that just was this kind of tiny little story almost, I'm sure traumatic at the time, but, you know, didn't feel traumatic growing up, became the pivotal thing that actually drove a lot of my, you know, teens, 20s and 30s until I identified that where that story had come from. And I had a boss once who said to me, look, you're really not good at taking feedback. And I went, what do you mean I'm not good at taking feedback? And he's like, case in point, Ellen. And I was like, and afterwards I went up to him and I said, I know what it is. You know, if I upset the male authority, it physically feels like I'm dying. And because it takes me back, unconsciously takes me back to that point. And so I've had to not do work to get rid of it, you know, to my point earlier, but just be aware of it and notice that when it comes up, go, yeah, you're not really dying. You're not falling off the boat. And actually it is okay to challenge this male authority, because right now what's going on isn't right, you know. So that's the one that came to my mind.
I you know, not many people refer to a near-death experience as not a big deal, but I mean, that's a choice, you know. That's fabulous. All right. So one more time for us, Ellen, walk us through website, your social medias. How do people contact you? You know, anything else that you want them to know and connect with you? Where do they do that?
Yeah, sure. You can always reach me at expandingpossibilities.today in the Let's Chat section. You can book a call, you can send a message. So that's probably the easiest way to reach out and get me. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Just search for Ellen Coomber. It's at Coomber Ellen if you're on Instagram. Instagram and Facebook I'm probably the most active on. Or you can just go to bookacallwithellen.com. If you fancy a chat, whether about sailing or a little bit more to share your story, it'd be great to hear from you.
Where are pictures of the boat and or your adventures? Where does one find those?
Mostly Facebook or Instagram.
Facebook and Instagram. So we'll all be friend requesting you at the end of the show and everything else. All right, Ellen, if I gave you 60 seconds to tell us a story, what would the world learn from you?
To go for what you love, like that you can have it all, just not all you think it's going to be. You can have all of the things that your spirit is truly calling for. So to go for what you love, not what you think you can get, to be outrageous, to own what you would really love, and then go, I don't know how I'm going to get it, and that's okay. But I'm at least going to say, this is what I would really love, and put it out there.
Mm-hmm. Fabulous. Well, Ellen, I've enjoyed once again our time together. I appreciate your time. It's extremely valuable, and I hope I honored that here today.
Thank you so much, Rose. It's been great chatting.
Thank you. To our listeners, if you have a story to share, visit tellasastorypodcast.com. If you're an aspiring author, a seasoned business owner, or looking to elevate your personal brand, visit belmontcitypress.com for expert advice on writing your own success story. Trust the next chapter because you are the author. Now, tell us a story.